This podcast is sponsored by Burp Babbling Cauldron. If you need the very latest in ointments, potions, concoctions, filters, news, mixtures, elixirs, creams, lotions, balms or salves, be sure to drop by and browse their wares. Whether you prefer your love potions to fizz, gurgle, froth or even buzz, Burp is the best and cheapest alchemical brewer in town with only a 17% accidental poisoning rate. That's actually very good. Oh, terms and conditions apply. Potions are always guaranteed to work. No refunds.
All the tabletop role-playing news. We aim to amuse and we aim to enthuse. And Morrus is unofficial tabletop RPG talk.
Hello, and welcome to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I, as always, am Russ, aka Morrus, or Morrus, aka Russ, and with me, as usual, is
Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Role Players. Russ, as ever, I'm sent it to absolute paroxysms of delight to be here.
And you brought a guest.
I did bring a guest.
Yes. Hello. Good morning.
This is Ashley Law, who has done approximately everything to do with 13th Age.
I more or less have, yeah.
Absolutely tons and tons of books. So we'll be talking to them on the podcast later on today about the
everything.
Sudden mind blank.
Yes,
His face just froze there. What was this sentence I was trying to say? What are these words? Words?
Peter.exe has ceased to function.
I know what happened. Is that Jedi Rome, you're getting so used to it, you thought that you could telepathically continue the podcast. Doesn't work like that, Peter. Doesn't work like that.
You're saying we can't force a good podcast? We're professionals. So
Right.
like that. Yes. So, what's caught your eye this week for us? Anything exciting?
Yesterday, Peter, we were on another podcast, weren't we?
Oh, is that what we were doing?
Yeah.
I was so hopped up on Lebship, I was
we were cheating on our own podcast. We were having a little dalliance.
We were on holiday.
So we appeared on Shane Stacks, who's one of our longest-term listeners and one of our supporters, who has in fact been on this podcast during the infamous 50th episode 50 4-hour spectacular.
We shall not speak of that again. Right.
He invited us onto
that strange man was, of course.
Yeah, he invited us onto his radio show over in the US. We spoke to him about
Arkansas.
Hot rocks, no. Medium-sized rock. Hill rocks. No.
Big rocks.
Are you talking about Big Rock, Arkansas?
Little Rock, Arkansas is
Little Rock,
Arkansas is where he is.
Oh, that could be the place,
I didn't know that. I was just being silly. Little Rock, Arkansas is where Shane lives, and he invited us onto his podcast. We spoke to him last night for about 2 hours. I don't know how much of it will make it through to the actual show, and I think that will be coming out in a week or two. He said.
Marvelous. Well, we should look forward to it when it comes out.
Yes,
and that's on what's the name of his podcast?
Shane Plays.
Shane Plays.
You can get that on iTunes and all the usual places. And I think if you live over in Arkansas, you can get it on the radio and stuff as well.
Marvellous. What's the sign to real life? I'll pick you over the radio.
Amazing, isn't it? Well, right. Things keep dropping through my door this week. Do you want to see some of the things that drop through my door?
As long as it's not flaming dog rubbish, then that's yes.
Yeah, none of that has dropped through my door.
Dog rubbish? Like what, crisp packets?
Exactly.
That dogs have eaten? I mean,
empty cigarette packets and things like that.
Those smoking poodles.
Yeah. It's those dogs from the poker painting.
Look, I'm just saying that maybe you shouldn't have slagged off their RPG on the podcast, man. That was not cool.
Oh dear. Anyway, this is what's dropped through my door. So, item the first. Item the first. I will hold it up so you can see it. This is a book called Dungeons and Desktops.
Wow, is that a book or is that a melee weapon?
It's quite big. It's how many pages is it? That's
a
750 million pages. It's about 600 pages. Well, this is by our friend Shane Stacks and his co-writer Matt Barton. and they sent me a copy
Oh, yeah.
of this, and I literally got it about half an hour ago it came, so I haven't even opened it yet, but this is going to be what I'm going to be reading for the next couple of weeks.
Breaking news.
Yeah.
It says it's called Dungeons and Desktops.
Yes, The History of Computer Role-Playing Games 2nd Edition.
Ah, excellent. Not only is the title good, but the subtitle is very explanatory as well.
Yes.
As you know, I'm a big fan of explanatory titles.
So the other things that I have to hand, I have the 2 copies of A Touch of Class and A Touch More Class. Exciting stuff. Shiny. Very nice.
Got a red one and a green
A red
one.
one and a green one, yeah. I have got a copy of The Expanse role-playing game.
Ooh,
So I backed the Kickstarter last year, and it finally arrived this week.
well, not everyone can move on in publishing timescales, I'm afraid.
Well, I glanced through it, and it's I haven't had a chance to read it yet, and I'm not familiar with the Age game system. So I've glanced through it, and it is gorgeous looking. I mean, have a look at that. It's a pretty book.
Oh, yeah, that's a nice full colour, got some good layout there.
Yeah.
Do you know the Age role-playing game system, Ashley?
I don't. I've had my head down with 13th Age for so long, but you were
Yes.
just like, A Touch of Class. And I'm like, oh, that's one of the things that I release on my Patreon. So maybe I'll need to change the name for that.
Yeah, Touch of Class is a book we released about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I've really had my head down on stuff. It's good because then I can't be accused of, oh, you copied this thing or you borrowed from this thing. But it's also bad because other people will say, have you heard of this thing? It's been out for ages. And I'm like,
No,
what do you
never
mean?
heard of it.
What do you mean Dungeons and Dragons? What is this new thing?
Well, talking of
There's
Dungeons
a
and
5th
Dragons,
edition now.
yeah. Well, talking of Dungeons and Dragons, that's the last thing that dropped through my door this week with us. Acquisitions Incorporated.
That does look exciting.
Again, it looks very shiny. Looks gorgeous inside. It's a different style of art to the sort of thing you're used to in a D&D.
Is it all penny arcade style?
Yeah. It's a lot more cartoony. If you have a look.
We want to see...
Can you see that?
higher.
I'm sorry. There you go.
Oh, yes, that's better. Yes. Oh, screw your face. That's better. that looks interesting. I don't know what it is. Oh, that's a monk. Oh.
I really like the penny arcade thing they did for 4th edition, the player's guide. So if this is as good as that,
they should be very good indeed.
Well, again, because it's only just arrived, I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I've glanced through it. I mean, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do an episode each, one for Acquisitions Incorporated, which maybe we could do next week, maybe, and then one for The Expanse.
Oh, yes. I think that looks like an excellent plan.
So that's our next 2 weeks covered.
Yes, I shall have to go and reread all of the Expanse books, because there's actually a new Expanse book out. I think it's been out for a couple of months now, but I actually haven't had a chance to read it yet, because I know, life. Cutting into my reading time.
I'm still watching the TV series that appears on Amazon, I think it's on.
oh, it's so good. Such a good series.
I think
I love it.
we're about a season behind here. So it's still only in the 2nd season, I think, on Amazon. I'm not sure. Either that or I'm just woefully behind, but I think it's still on the 2nd season.
I see.
I think we've had 3 seasons here in the US. I know they've got up to the bit with... Oh, sorry, anybody who's watching along... No, I won't
No
spoil it.
spoilers!
No spoilers.
No spoilers!
So they've got up to the bit where they encounter the Jedi, and...
Excellent.
Peter's face was like, I don't remember that.
I haven't got to that bit.
What's going on?
I mean, it's been a couple of books, but yeah, okay. Oh, I see you're playing chess with us, Ashley. Yeah, very good. Where were we? Yes. Hey, everyone, how about, right, and this is just like a great idea here, right? What we could do is we could talk about the RPG news.
I think that's a silly idea.
It is a terrible idea.
What sort of silly podcast would do such a silly thing?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to call it something like Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG news or RPG talk or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would never fly. That's far too long a name.
I'll tell you what, let's be rebellious. Let's just do it anyway, shall we?
Yeah!
Let's talk about some RPG news.
Yeah, fantastic.
All right, then. Well, you know what the biggest RPG news in the last week was?
Go on.
Oh, what?
2 big D&D releases.
Bum bum bum. Is one of them Acquisitions Incorporated?
One of them is indeed Acquisitions Incorporated. Came out last week.
Yes.
And the other one is the D&D Essentials kit, which comes out in America only until October. Which I find slightly chafing, but hey, what are you going to do?
I'm looking forward to that slightly before you then.
Quite a long way before me, because October's like 10 million months away, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like an eternity in role-playing time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you have a Target nearby you, Ashley, then that is the place to look for it.
Target is very nearby me, so is that out right now?
Yes.
No, I think it's like a couple of days, but reviewers have been getting copies and stuff like that early.
If it's Target, then it's probably already on the shelf. So
maybe.
Yeah.
People
have been getting hold of it.
I checked where the closest Target to me was. Apparently, it's approximately 3,000 miles away. On the other side of an ocean, so I won't be picking that. Really. Oh well.
No, fair enough. But it looks quite interesting. I particularly was it Beth? Beth did a nice review of it.
That is correct. Yep. Beth did a nice review. A nice review on EN World, describing that Essentials kit does actually look really interesting.
Yeah, no, it looks pretty solid. Got a 1 to 6 adventure, which we did previously know about, which is good. But one of the things I'm liking is that they're moving away from doing pre-gen characters to changing the emphasis to you create your own characters.
Yes, because the original starter kit only had pre-gens, didn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Whereas this one does not have pre-gens, but it has some very sort of... I get the impression it's quite simplified character generation rules, because there's only 4 races in there.
And 5 classes.
And 5 classes.
Like
Yeah.
Your big 4, I think, was it Ranger as well? But yeah, no, it's...
The races are Dwarf, Elf, Halfling, and Human. And the 5 classes are Bard, Cleric, Fighter, Rogue, and Wizard.
Okay, Bard's in there. Bard's in there,
yeah. So it's like the core 4 plus Bard, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, Bard is an excellent second person on the job for pretty much everything, really. And they just make everything better.
Yeah.
It's funny you say core 4, because I don't think I've played in a game with the core 4 for a long time. Because you're like,
no, I don't think so either, no.
Build a party, and everybody's like, okay, I'll be a Chaos Mage, and I'm going to be a Druid, but I'm going to...
Yes, I'm going to be a Tiefling Chronomancer.
Well, barbarians are very popular, I've seen, but you know what, I prefer fighters. I'm just basic that way, I guess. And I haven't seen clerics. I sometimes see clerics occasionally, but I think people have always traditionally seen them as heal bots. But you know what, with 5th edition and the way the healing works, you're often better off not doing much beyond the healing word in the combat, and then you can concentrate on the important key skills of the cleric, which are spiritual weapon and spiritual guardians, which basically rain death, destruction, and doom upon everybody.
I think that's a bit harsh. Death, destruction, and doom.
The 3Ds.
Yeah.
Have you seen how much damage Spiritual Guardians does? It's not small. and spiritual weapon isn't a concentration spell. It's just a magic weapon that floats around, attacking things using the cleric's wisdom score as part of the cleric's weapon.
Still, don't you feel that death, destruction, and doom is a bit overkill? Don't you think any one of those would have done?
I would have, but like you do. Okay, you go away. You do the math. I'd look at it and say, and then you come back and disagree. Yeah,
all right then. I'll do that. All right then.
Fantastic.
I was just looking at the other stuff that's in that Essentials kit. So there's a new DM screen.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of cards. There's initiative cards. There's some
that's actually a good idea.
Step-by-step cards. I'm not sure what those are exactly, and I can't see clearly on the picture. And the closest copy of this Essentials kit to me is 3,000 miles away. So, and condition cards as well are in there.
Oh, nice!
That's really so. What are they using for initiative cards? Is it just like 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th initiative, or is it's literally that?
I guess
probably 1 to 8, 1 to 10, something like that.
That's brilliant. I've been making my own for like the last 10 years, and handing them out round tables. So now that it's great. At conventions, I would get index cards, and I would write people's character names on them, and then they'd get to write their own initiative where they were in the initiative order. And people. Yeah, I think that's a genius idea. I think.
So what I do is I make everyone sit around the table in initiative order every time they roll, and then every time they roll initiative again, it's like musical chairs, and they all have to get up and change places.
You're like the Mad Hatter. Change places. Everybody change places.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
No, I am completely lying. Of course I don't do that.
guidelines.
But I want to start doing that now. That just sounds like fun.
Absolutely. 20 minutes of light exercise per week.
Yes.
One of the things I saw... also, it's got the duet play, which might be of interest to you, Ashley. It includes sidekicks, which are basically sort of like a NPC that is
Like
supposed
minions,
to be player controlled.
It's like an NPC that uses a monster stat block, as I understand it, isn't it? So it's a lot more simple than a full character. I mean, you use that as a secondary character to help you out.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've seen one of the suggestions is that a less experienced player could play a sidekick to a more experienced player. I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look at a bit more depth at how it works, but yeah, that is a possibility. Yeah. And things I saw elsewhere are that they are definitely moving away from factions, which were absolutely integral to the initial releases that they brought out. That there's no mention of Harper's, Zentrim, Lord's Alliance, any of that. They've all been completely taken out, and they don't mention Adventurers League.
This
either.
is still set in the realms, isn't it? In fact, it's set in Vandelver, isn't it? As a sequel, so you can play it. I don't know if it's a sequel as such, but you can play it with the original starter set, I think.
Yeah, you could probably do around that. The original starter set, I think, went up to level 4, level 5, whereas this one's hitting level 6. So it sounds intriguing. Apparently, it's also a bit easier to run for the newer DM. So yeah. Oh, and it's got more dice in as well. I see. Yeah, like extra D6 and of course 2D20, which, considering the game has advantage and disadvantage, is pretty much essential. So I think it looks like quite a nice offering.
Well, also we got Acquisitions Incorporated, of course, which I brandished before you earlier in the podcast. So what are your kind of thoughts on this? Because, I mean, we'll do a whole podcast on it, but just really super briefly. So obviously Acquisitions Incorporated is a totally different tone of game to anything ordinarily set in the Forgotten Realms. It's basically a comedy / satire / satire's harsh. It's not as... Do you know what I mean? It's it's a very, very different tone. What do you think of them doing that?
Yeah. Have you come across that, Ashley?
You mean am I aware of Acquisitions Incorporated, or?
Yes.
Yes. I've caught a couple of issues. I must admit, I'm in the rare part of the population who doesn't hugely enjoy watching other people play. I think what, for me, watching other people play is a lot like sex. It looks very silly from the outside. It's great when you're involved, but from the outside you're like, that looks a little bit strange, silly.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you've got to kind of buy into it, I guess. If you're going to sit there and watch.
Yeah, it's definitely something that one would wish to be more actively involved in. From my particular point of view.
You mean?
I've never regarded RPGs as spectator support.
Yeah, but it does help when you've got like professional voice actors and comedians and stuff doing it, because they can bring a sort of entertainment element to it, which is slightly harder to do at home, I think.
Yeah,
having said that, I did really enjoy Harmon Quest. I thought that was very well done. So yeah, I'm keen to see what Acquisitions Incorporated do for their book, because the tone of their game is very similar to the tone of games that I enjoy. Because the games I tend to run are always set out being, this is going to be a serious game with like harrowing consequences for actions, and before you know it, one player's been transmogrified into a chicken and is going around starting their own religion, and somebody else has lost their trousers.
We haven't even talked about the characters yet.
The initial vision is Lord of the Rings. The execution tends to be more
Monty Python.
Monty Python.
Yeah, absolutely. Holy Grail, very good. Acquisitions Incorporated. I don't know huge amounts about it because I also haven't been following the podcast, but I have seen some of the spells that they have been releasing. One I particularly liked was Gift of the Gab, which is where you can use a spell has a reaction to make someone forget the last 6 seconds of what you were talking about. Useful for when you're having a conversation with someone and you let slip something that you realise that you really shouldn't have done.
Sorry, what's that you said, Peter?
Exactly.
It works, damn it. Should we do that next week in depth then? Should we do Acquisitions Incorporated next week and have a proper dive into it? Because I'd like to read it before I talk any more about it.
Yeah, good shout.
All right, okay. Some more news. SLA Industries, 2nd edition.
Oh, so I love SLA. I love the original. I haven't seen the 2nd edition yet. What's it like?
I don't know. It doesn't exist yet, but it's been announced, and it will be coming to Kickstarter in September.
Yes.
And there's a cover.
Yes.
And apparently it has a brand new rule system, but that's basically all I know at this stage.
Yeah.
I'm sure
it does sort of need new rules.
I never played the original, to be fair. I'm basically aware of what it is, but I've never actually played it. But I know a lot of people who are really, really keen on it, so I think this is going to be quite a thing.
Yep. I've only ever come across it at conventions, but I have really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very, very. There's been a Savage Worlds conversion as well. For those who are unfamiliar with Nightfall Games' SLA Industries, it is essentially a product of the socio-cultural trends of 1980s Scotland, specifically Glasgow. Has many things which really lean into the whole... if you've seen The Running Man, then you are pretty much there already. You've got like operatives, because the whole world has become a corporate dystopia in space, and like all your operatives go around wearing body armor that's sponsored by various corporations, occasionally followed by Third Eye News in order to better publicize them. So it's a wacky mix of dystopia, capitalism gone completely murderously rampant, and paranoid command and control politics. It's it's quite fun.
I love it. It's like a mix of the darkest bits of Warhammer 40k with their like urban settings mixed with the funniest bits of paranoia.
Yes.
So it's this really weird, like, we're going to talk about horrific serial killers, and we're going to talk about the cannibal sectors, but also you're going to like pose for the camera with some severed heads, and you're going to, and it's a brilliant conceit, and I liked the meta story around it as well that they came up with, and yeah, for people who are aware of 80s Scottish stuff, there's like a load of, you're like, oh, I know what that's referring to. That's like a nodding in joke. That's a nod and a wink there to 1980s Scotland.
Yeah. Always been a big fan of the Throffer class, which are basically, I'm not sure how to describe them in any sort of like sensible fashion. They like a brew, they wear kilts, and they're big on claymores.
I was just looking at the history of the game and the companies that have been involved in it. So it was originally published by Nightfall Games. It was purchased by Wizards of the Coast. Then it went back to Nightfall Games. Then Cubicle 7 had it for a few years, and now it's back again with Nightfall Games. That game's been bouncing around all over the industry.
The copy I've got, I think, is Hogshead Games.
Yeah, I think Hogshead distributed it, wasn't it, for Nightfall? Is that how that worked?
I think so.
I'm not sure what the relationship was exactly. I'm not sure. Something like that.
But yeah, so it'll be excellent to introduce it to a new generation of gamers. Although they may be like, well, this seems pretty much normal to us now. It's like less dystopian, more regular, everyday stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some more news.
Oh, yes.
What's your favourite Star Trek villain?
Khan?
It kind of had to be, really, didn't it? So
we're talking the original series, Star Trek 2, as opposed to Benedict Cumberbatch? Yes.
Yes, the original guy. So Modifius are releasing 2 new miniature sets for their Star Trek Adventures RPG. The first one is a original series landing party. It just includes just some sort of generic characters, like a couple of Andorians and a Vulcan and stuff like that. But the best bit is the iconic villain set. Ooh. And this includes Khan and the Borg Queen.
Okay,
Q,
yes, nice.
Locutus of Borg.
Okay.
Gold Ducat for those DS9 fans.
DS9.
Which I know you're one. Law.
That's right.
General Chang. He was the guy in Star Trek 6, was he? I think, with the eye patch.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Christopher Walken.
Christopher Plummer.
No, not Christopher Plummer.
Yeah.
No, not Christopher Plummer.
Was it not?
Christopher Lloyd.
The guy who played Doc Brown.
Yeah, Christopher Lloyd.
Star Trek 3. Was that General Kang? I have to look this up now. I'm not sure which one General Chang is. I should know this because I have a big.
Does the miniature look like Christopher Lloyd?
No, it's the Christopher Plummer. It's the one with the eye patch. Yeah, from Star Trek 6.
Okay.
And Chancellor Gorkon's Chief of Staff.
Apparently, a lot of Christophers have played a lot of Klingon.
Yes, yeah. There are a lot of Christophers in Hollywood for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
You also get the Gorn Captain in this set as well. Just to complete the Star Trek. The Gorn Captain. You know the one that Captain Kirk has a fist fight with on a planet?
The Gorn. You know,
he
has to make a rudimentary lathe to... Yeah. And then he shoots like a diamond at him out of the log. The Gorn is defeated because Kirk doesn't obey the laws of physics or engineering or anything.
He rejects your laws.
I'm fairly sure Kirk does one of his custom run up to him, roll along the floor of it, jump up, whack him with a double hand on the back of the neck.
The Kirk smash is a classic for a reason.
I mean, if one fist hurts, then 2 fists together has got to have some sort of like... Yeah.
Exponential effect. Yeah.
It's totally logical to me. Oh, dear. So if we stay on the old Modifius, because, once you start talking Modifius, you never stop, do you? Because they do so much stuff. Yeah.
Choo-choo. We're on the Modifius train now.
I'm assuming I'm pronouncing this correctly. Liminal. Liminal.
Oh, I think I've heard of this one. This is where you have... sort of children exploring rural Britain with a sort of X-Files vibe.
Yeah,
is that the one?
I don't know if it's children specifically.
Okay, yeah.
But it calls itself the boundary between the modern day United Kingdom and the hidden world. And you've got fairy courts and werewolf gangs and haunted places and stuff like that. Also, nice. They've already sold out as well, so if you listen to this podcast, you can't have it. They're just taunting us with it. This is a book you could have had.
I know a guy who might be able to hook me up, yeah.
I'm sure there is a free quick start you can download.
Yeah, nice.
But it does look pretty cool. I like the look of that one. I might try and pick that up if they reprint it, which I'm sure they will.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What else do we have in the news? Oh, we got some D&D miniatures.
Okay.
This is all the Avernus stuff.
Oh, okay. Tell me more.
So you can get a miniature of Zariel.
Yes. Oh, the actual angel.
Yeah.
Come demon lord.
Yeah. Then various characters such as Mad Maggie. I don't know who these people are, but Mad Maggie, Silvera Savikas, and I'm always really good at pronouncing fantasy names. Mahadi, who is a Rakshasa. Thavius Krieg, Little Lulu, Slobberchop, Lucille.
Are you sure you're pronouncing names of like D&D miniatures and not just like the cast list of some show?
Yes. So the cast list of The Walking Dead or something, I think. But also one of the miniatures is, what's his Joe Manganiello.
Is that another miniature, or is that?
No, that's a human being.
Yes. They do. They were on some show like the vampire one. I can't remember.
True Blood.
That's not helping.
Yeah, and he was in
and they do
Magic Mike.
Saving throws. Saving Throws clothing or something?
Just Saving Throws clothing, and he's on a whole load of... He's been on a whole load of live streams and stuff like that.
Yes,
he's an actor, basically. He's a Hollywood actor who's really, really super into D&D. Anyway, his character in his home campaign is called Arkhand the Cruel, and they've made a miniature of him too.
Oh, cool.
So he's got an official miniature made of his own home character.
Oh, how jolly.
Which I thought was rather nice.
Yeah, very true.
Yes.
Okay.
It's good to be a Hollywood actor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, more news? You want more news?
Yes, more.
Are you sure? More. Are you sure you want more news?
Have you run out of news?
No, it's some more news, yeah.
Oh, I've got news.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So, do you remember Ponyfinder?
I remember it existing. I haven't actually read it or anything.
Would I be correct in guessing from the name that it was the conversion of Pathfinder to include My Little Pony?
Yeah.
No, legally not My Little Pony.
Right.
It's a different world with different talking ponies, some of which are unicorns, some of which have wings, some of which are, small dragons, but legally is not a certain other intellectual property.
Completely distinct in all legally important ways.
Absolutely.
But if one were to describe it as Pathfinder meets My Little Pony, you would not be entirely off the mark.
You wouldn't be entirely off the mark, no. I got a copy of that book for myself, and I looked at that and I went, okay. I would like to produce a 13th age version of that. So I'm currently working on a 13th age version of Ponyfinder, and you are the first people outside of a small circle to actually learn of this. So this is an exclusive for the podcast.
Is this our first ever exclusive? That's amazing.
It's your first ever exclusive.
I think it's probably the most significant exclusive that I've ever had, because it means that I am going to end up running a game of My Little Pony. Girlfriend,
not My Little Pony. The copyright police will be at your door.
It's not My Little Pony.
Well, they wanted me to run Tales of Equestria, which is, I think, a much closer licensed game of it.
That's the official Hasbro one, which came out like 10 years after Ponyfinder. And yeah.
And that's great. I don't want to learn a new RPG system to run on one-off game. Call me old-fashioned, but so if there were to be a 13th age system, which I'm actually familiar with, then I'm pretty sure through the power of Blagamancy I'll be able to get someone to give role-playing games a try, because they've been like, oh no, I'll only play the My Little Pony role-playing game Tales of Equestria. But it's close enough.
Yeah.
You can just tell them that's what they're playing. Just stick a fake cover on the front. They won't know.
Bit of gaffer tape and some Sharpie, job done.
Exactly. Is this coming to Kickstarter then, Ashley, or is it a standard release?
No. It's something I'm writing, and it's just going to go up on Drive-Thru RPG or something like that, and is through the Ponyfinder people. And no, it's as far as I know, is not going to be kickstarted. But I'm really looking forward to getting this finished, so I can then work on my next project, which is a secret project that I can't talk about, but is very exciting.
We've heard about many, many, many secret projects that people can't talk about on this podcast. This always makes for the best podcast material, we think.
Oh, absolutely.
News at 10. There's some news that we can't tell you.
It's a secret project.
It's going to be so awesome. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. I can't tell you about it, but it's going to be so cool. Yeah.
Also, Shards of a Broken Sky, which I wrote back in 2013 and has been in production for forever, is now actually at the printers and is printing and is... Yeah, I know.
That's the one with a town that crashes to Earth. Is that? Am I remembering correctly?
Yeah, you start in a small village, and you're just having like small village adventures, and then literally a city crashes out of the sky on top of you, and everything gets like very apocalyptic very quickly, and so you have all these dungeon environments just dropping on you. Like, here's a tower full of dead wizards who died in the crash, and now that's like literally fallen on your path, and you're like, I don't know, taking refuge to safety or seeking safety for yourself, and now you have to deal with a dungeon environment. There's magical rain falling from the sky. It's kind of
This is some classic 13th Age stuff we're talking. Where it's just like, let's take the volume and turn it up to 13. We tried 11, but that wasn't loud enough.
I always do think, whenever I hear about 13th Age stuff, because they've got that giant living dungeon as well and things like that, it always seems to... It always does, like you just said, take it up to 13. Like, the sort of fun, sort of slight wackiness of D&D just slightly enhanced and slipped over to the side slightly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to say it, well, they took 4th Ed and they removed the grid, and instead of nerfing wizards, they buffed fighters to make them as awesome, and then they turned it into a Wusha Picaresque, and then hilarity ensued.
Yes, it really works. I've got a book of classes coming out through Pelgrane. I don't know when that's happening, because for my Patreon, I write like 1, maybe 2 new 13th Age classes each month, along with all the other things I do. Rob was like, we should do a book of classes. Let me just take all these classes and put them into a book. So that's going to be really interesting. I'm working on something called the Grim Grimoire. Do you remember Deep Magic?
Yes.
Which was like...
Do I remember Deep Magic?
Uh-huh.
I have done quite that. I have a very well-thumbed copy of Deep Magic. The Deep Magic, right, got me to play a wizard. Which you're like, okay, so everyone plays wizards. No, I don't play wizards. I don't find them very interesting. 13th Age, I was looking at it saying, oh, I could play a wizard. Utility spells are very cool.
Yeah.
And then Deep Magic came out. I was like, oh, Ben, can I play a wizard? And he's like, yeah, sure, that seems fine. Little realising the horror that I was going to inflict on his game. I mean, it's called Deep Magic, but it might as well be called the Big Wizard Book of Shenanigans.
Is there like 500 spells or something in that thing?
555 spells, yeah. So
there's a lot of spells. I think I will work my way through abusing most of them.
What was your favourite
not always
one?
fairly, I got to say. There was one fight we were in where it was like we got to a certain point, I was like, oh, no, I don't like how this fight is turning out for us. What I'm going to do is use my once per level high level spell and just rewind time for about a minute to before we were having this fight, and then say, oh, I was going to tell this guy this thing, now I'm not going to tell him this thing unless we avoid the fight altogether.
Yeah.
Cool.
Which is naughty, but not strictly how you're supposed to use the spell, but...
God.
Like,
Just
that's so
imagine
stupid,
using that
allowance.
spell, right, and you've got one of those groups that takes ages and ages to do combat, and you're really, really bored after about 2.5 hours of doing this proper grueling combat that goes on and on and on, and finally you've almost whittled it, the enemy's down, the combat's almost over, and you're thinking, oh, thank God I can go home now. And then someone casts that spell, and rewinds it all back a minute, and you have to do it all again.
That would be terrible. Fortunately, if you're bored in combat in 13th Age, something has gone terribly wrong. There is literally no roller to die that is wasted.
Excellent.
You can't, even if you miss, you still do miss damage. Anyway, we'll talk about 13th Age in a tick.
So really quickly then. So Osprey Games are releasing a new series of role-playing games this November called the Osprey Role-Playing Series. And they'll be starting with Romance of the Perilous Land and Paleo Mythic.
Wait, Osprey, who does like the Osprey books?
Yes.
Like here's everything you need to know about Roman gladiator. Okay, that's awesome. I like that.
Quite historical sort of fantasy gaming, I think.
Well, so we've got Romance of the Perilous Land is a role-playing game of British folklore. It's of course mythic Britain, drawing from King Arthur and other folklore from the island nation. And then Paleo Mythic, I bet you can probably guess what that is just on the name.
It's where you have to go on some sort of paleo diet? Or?
Yes, that's what it is. It's a diet book.
Is that like the warrior diet where it's all meat all the time?
No, it does look quite cool. You play Stone Age humans, and you've got to survive as hunters, healers, warriors, and soothsayers, and contend with hostile tribes and other worldly spirits and prehistoric beasts with only Stone Age technology.
And if you're a big Robert E. Howard fan, you could throw in some Cthulhu mythos in there as well.
Yeah, why not?
That seems legit. Yeah.
Always sounds fun. And the final bit of news. The final bit of news is there was a Kickstarter that launched last week.
Is there?
There was.
Oh, is it? Is it a significant Kickstarter of some sort?
Well, it's certainly significant to me.
It's not another 5th edition D&D Kickstarter, is it?
Sorry.
We get far too many of those.
Sorry. But last week when we recorded, it was just about to launch.
Yeah.
And then by the time the listeners got the podcast, it had launched, but we didn't know how well it had done at the time because we didn't have the power of time travel.
And I guess it had done. It would probably do about £1,501 or something like that in the first 24 hours, which was 150% of the funding.
So yeah. So what actually happened was it funded in 4 minutes, which I thought was pretty awesome. And by the end of the first 24 hours, I think it was at 19,000. Was it something like that? 16,
19,
something in those, something in that region. And it's currently sitting at about £33,000, which is about $40,000.
That's
I don't know. The pound and the dollar keep changing.
I know, it does confuse me. Yeah, but it's only a weekend. It's doing really well.
Yes. I think you released some. My email informs me that you have released some PDFs for it already.
Yes, some of the stretch
releasing
goals.
Rewards.
Yeah,
some Kickstarter's finished.
Yeah, some of the stretch goals I've already released to backers. So when we hit 20,000 and then when we hit 30,000, each of those times I've released 5 of the PDF stretch goals. So I've released 10 of them so far, of the 29 total stretch goals. So 10 of them you can get already, and the Kickstarter hasn't even ended yet.
Yep, so the more money people throw at you, then that will release more PDFs into the wild.
Yeah, so I don't think I actually said what it was, actually. So that, for listeners who are listening to this the first time, that is a Touch More class, which is a sequel to our previous Kickstarter 2 years ago, a Touch Of class, and it contains 9 new classes for your 5th edition games. And we talked all about it on last week's podcast, so if you're interested in that, rewind a week and listen to that one.
So you can get hold of 16 additional classes, which is 2 more than you'll find in the Player's Handbook. So, good times.
Okay.
I think everyone gets the PDFs, which is an additional 60 additional subclasses for the existing classes. Exactly. And that's available to everyone that's available to just everyone, you said.
Anyone who backs Kickstarter gets those for free.
Gotta say, sounds impressive. Yeah.
Right, that's it for the news, I think. I think we are done with the news.
There's no more news. Okay,
so
well, good job, everyone. We can pack up and go home.
Now we can play our favourite game in all the world, if you like.
Yes, please.
Oh, marvellous. I'll get my pack of cards out.
That old chestnut.
I'll tap an iron for blue mana.
Our favourite game in the world, the game where I read out the name of a Kickstarter and you have to guess what it is from just the name. I'm getting quite good at saying that. I've said it so many times now. It just comes out, trips off the tongue. See, it is a snappy title. You say it's not, but I think it's a very snappy title.
Insert sounds of tumbleweed here.
Yes.
Maybe a church bell ringing lonely in the distance.
Okay then. Right then. Are we ready?
We're
2 each. So if Peter goes first, then Ashley, you can just see how it works, and then you can go afterwards. So Peter, first one for you is... What is Quietus? Quietus.
Well, it's the name of a particular set of disciplines in Vampire the Masquerade, as used by the Assamites. I can tell you that right off the bat. What it might then be in more general terms, I'm not quite sure. So let's have a go. Quietus. I think it is a role-playing game supplement for 5th edition rogues, specifically delving into assassins. No, that's complete rubbish. I don't like that at all. That's boring. Forget about that. Okay, Quietus can be... It is...
You love these one-word ones, don't you? They're the best.
The one where I get like a single word. I'm supposed to like guess something about it. Yeah, and normally, of course, they have the subtitle, which actually
but that's the thing.
explains
It is Quietus, colon, and then the thing that tells you what it is. But I can't read that now because that ruins the game.
Yeah, so I'm basically playing Guess the Colon.
Guess the pre... Yeah.
Or guess what happens after the colon.
Yes, guess the post-colon.
Yeah, guess the post-colon.
You get the pre-colon, guess the post-colon.
Oh, there we go. Right, so pre-colon for post-colon. Let's go. Quietus. I'm still favouring assassinations. What I would like this game to be about, though, is I would like this game to be similar to the idea in the movie A Quiet Place, where the world has had some sort of horrendous thing happen to it, and there are sound-seeking monsters that are roaming all over the shop, eating things, but that's, again, not much of a game.
I think I know what this is. This is this is a game that's somehow set in a library.
And the librarians then try and assassinate you. Oh,
Yeah.
like, you got to
Librarian
go
assassins.
and do. You basically got to be a bunch of adventurers in a In fact, what it is it's a supplement for Call of Cthulhu, where you are adventurers going to a library and you're actually trying to do the research, but because you're adventurers and this inherently noisy, the librarians are all out trying to assassinate you. So what it is it's a source book for Call of Cthulhu, and it has 50 different encounters of murder in the library.
Yes, that's exactly
I'm
what
going to
it
go
is.
with that.
That's what it is.
Woo!
It's not really. No.
No, I don't think so.
Not even close.
Just in case anyone was listening, I would buy that book.
What
50
this
different very different murders encounters in the library. Totally solved.
What this is a one-shot, no prep RPG of melancholy horror inspired by tragic horror films like Oculus, The Strangers, and Don't Look Now.
Okay. I'm sadly unfamiliar with any of those, but
They're horror
does anyone
movies.
know anything about them?
Yeah, they're like
you think, yeah?
yeah, they've got like jump scares and stuff, and I think one of them has a magic mirror. But I may be thinking of Snow White.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it says the mechanics are inspired by Forged in the Dark, which is the system behind Blades in the Dark, but streamlined and repurposed for one-shot play in the horror genre.
Well, okay. A lot of the mechanics for Blades in the Dark are clocks and fronts, so yeah, sure, why not? Okay.
Okay.
Well, that sounds like that'd be good. And if you're a horror fan and know what any of those films are, then this may be an excellent game for you.
Okay. Ready for the next one?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, this one's for Ashley.
Oh, this is Ashley's go.
This is Ashley's turn.
Yeah.
Okay. You ready?
What
is Remarkable Shops and Their Wares?
Remarkable Shops and Their Wares.
He's just looking at me and he's like, that's not fair.
I'm saying nothing.
So obviously I'm not gonna go with the obvious, which is it's a collection of remarkable shops and their wares. I think this is a story game.
Maybe you should.
I think maybe this is a story game where you play as shops, and you all sit around a table, and it's got some sort of mechanic that involves lighting candles and then flicking wax at the other players. It sounds like a story game.
I'm pretty sure I played that board game.
It should be that. Unfortunately, what it is the thing you said you weren't going to guess. It's a system-neutral book of fantasy shops, basically.
Remarkable Shops and Their Wares, a supplement for Quietus for librarian game. you play a bunch of adventurers who have to shoplift, and everybody's like a heavily armed ex-adventurer, and you have to go into these stores. You're like, I need some magic potions, but I can't afford it. Let me shoplift from a Minotaur storekeeper.
Sadly.
And the Minotaur storekeeper's completely okay with this.
Sadly it's not.
That would be a much better game.
But I suppose you could use it as locations for shoplifting, if you want.
Well, let's be honest. What is it going to get you
reward matrix?
It's got some interesting looking locations. It's got underwater libraries. So there we go. We've got your libraries in there. Black markets and magic item artificers and stuff like that. It does look kind of fun.
How do underwater libraries work? I mean, the pages would get all soggy. The librarians you would just drown.
It on parchment. So it would run.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Or maybe
parchment scrolls.
Or maybe they have bubbles. Oxygen bubbles.
Oh, okay.
Your hands will get wet when you come through, unless they're magically drying.
Well, how else do mer people read? They must have some way of reading.
They read the same way as everyone else, you racist.
This is my disapproving look.
I figured mer people might use some sort of form of braille.
Yeah, that could work, actually.
Like sheets of cultured coral with like little holes in it.
Coral
and that's their
braille.
writing system.
Coral braille,
Coral braille.
Coral braille.
Yeah, they could do that, or they could carve some runes. Like
Yeah,
that
into
would
rock.
work. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
got plenty of slate and stuff on the ocean floor. Anyway, okay, right. So come on, have we got another one, Russ?
The next one is.
Yes.
Let's have a look. This one's for you, then. God. They're all very easy, actually. And one of them we did last week. I'm trying to find one that's not so easy that you can just get it straight from the name, but I don't think I've got a choice. What is Ultimate Kingdoms?
You know this game is like a lot less easy on this side of the table for us, right? Ultimate Kingdoms is. I'm going to play it safe now. Play it safe. It's going to be a supplement for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, which is all about creating. Which is all about
Just
creating.
go with the odds.
Playing it super safe, which is all about creating kingdoms and how to do proper world building and building stuff up for D&D. How about
That is exactly what it is. 100%.
Oh, it's a good name for a Kickstarter then.
Yes, you have scored 100% out of 100%.
Woo! Doing well.
It is
tell
for
us a bit more about it.
D&D 5e. It's also for Pathfinder. You got the D&D 5e. Build and rule your kingdom, armies, conquest, factions, intrigue in a beautiful hardcover.
Nice.
There you go. It's 400 pages, and it's from Legendary Games. So it's a big hardcover.
And when does this Kickstarter end?
This Kickstarter ends on Thursday, July the 4th. Okay, this one is the Story Master's Tales, Weirding Woods.
Story Master's Tales, Weirding Woods.
Ooh, tricky.
Okay, the obvious thing is that it's for some sort of system called Story Master, or some system with a Story Master, and it's about the Weirding Woods. But I'm not going to go for that. I'm going to say that this is a Dune spin-off. It's a Dune spin-off where they're using the Weirding Way, but it's not on Arrakis. They're on some sort of heavily forested planet. And it's about a faction called Story Masters, and they tell their stories, and it's based off the Lynch movie, so it goes through they tell a story once upon a time, etc., etc. Goes through their weirding module, they blow people up, and they're fighting against giant sentient colons. So it's the Story Master : Weirding Woods. Yeah.
So
that's
again, it should be that.
But in fact, it's the first thing.
Well, what it is, it's an original system tabletop RPG based on the Grimm fairy tales.
Okay.
18th century dark fairy tales.
Yes.
Okay, I would actually play that. That sounds like a really fun game, actually.
It does look fun. It's kind of, it says it's a hybrid of fantasy role playing, also board and adventure game book, and it can be played solo or with a group.
Okay, so that sounds interesting. How is it like a board game?
Now that I am not so sure.
Probably lots of different components as part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it says,
or it might just be a way to tap into that board game money, which I think is something that I think Fantasy Flight did with, what was it, 2nd edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, where they basically said, look, it's a board game, basically. Come play it. What could go wrong?
Well, Fantasy Flight games always does sort of very, very intricate, well-produced, I would say overproduced games with too many bits for my taste, all the cards and tokens and stuff.
Yeah, we think in the cognoscenti that it's largely due to the fact that they must own stock in a cardboard manufacturer.
Well, looking at this, you asked what makes it a board game, and looking at some people play it in some pictures here, there doesn't appear to be a board, but there's lots of cards spread out on the table.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe more card game than board game, maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just going off some pictures here.
Yes.
And they've got candles on the table, which is always awesome.
Yes.
Some sort of candle-based mechanic.
Yes,
I'm hearing a lot of candles.
Must be. There must be some kind of timer or something with the candles.
Oh, okay. So it's like 10 candles or something like that.
Yeah.
But essentially
Different.
You get 50 story cards, 28 reward cards.
Was that reward or ward, as in a very small ward?
Reward. Ward? Little ward. Tiny ward.
Reward.
Reward.
A
Yes.
tiny ward. Wee ward.
TV ward.
Aye, Scottish.
Mini
A wee
ward.
card.
Mini ward. Tiny ward. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fun. I might back that one. It's only got 6 days to go, and it's on £34,000. So by the time this goes out, there'll only be like 3 or 4 days left.
Yes. Well, yeah. Get in. What's it called again? It's
It is
Storymaster the Weirding Wood?
Weirding Woods.
Storymaster Weirding Woods.
Weirding Woods.
Okay.
So I think that is the end of our favourite game in all the world, and I'm trying to remember who won. I think, Peter, you won this week for the first time possibly ever by getting one right.
I didn't manage to get any right, strangely, because I second guess myself every time. But that's more fun. That's more fun.
Exactly. It does make it a more exciting game. And
There have been
it's
quite a lot of
win-win
times
situation.
when Peter's got it right and then talks himself out of that. And then come up with something entirely different.
Well, what can I say? It's definitely a fun game. And the worst case scenario is that you find that your idea was more interesting than the Kickstarter. The best
I
case,
really like the library game. That would be the quietest library game.
Yes.
With librarian assassins. Yeah.
I like the underwater library game. That sounds like the best game. That's the game I want to play.
Yeah. Going to Kickstarters near you. Okay, Bob, that's you finished. Helen, you've moved and attacked. Grace, your spell was cast successfully. Now it's Bert's turn.
Right. I'm going to start by moving. How far can I move?
What's your speed score?
Yeah, 7.
Then you can move 7 squares, just like last turn.
Okay, can I reach that doorway?
How many squares away is it?
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Is 7 a larger number than 6?
Yes.
Then yes, you can reach the doorway.
Okay, I move over here to the door. No, wait. Can I reach that tree instead?
I don't know, Bert. Can you?
Well, how far can I move?
What's your speed score?
Just
Just at the top there.
7.
Then you can still move 7 squares.
Okay. So I can reach the tree.
How far away is the tree, Bert?
8 squares.
Is 7 a larger or smaller number than 8?
It's smaller.
Then no, you cannot reach the tree.
Oh, okay. Right. I will cast Summon Badger 7.
Really? Again?
Yep. Okay. Now I have 12 badgers.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Okay. First badger. Can it reach that goblin?
What is its speed score, Bert?
5.
Then it can move 5 squares, Bert.
Is that enough to reach the goblin?
How far away is the goblin, Bert?
4 squares.
Is 5 a larger number than 4?
Yes.
And yes, it can reach the goblin.
Great. Okay. Badger number 1. I'll call him Kevin. Reaches the goblin. Now, badger number 2. How far can it move?
What is its speed score, Bert?
5. Five.
You don't say. Okay, so it can move 5 squares.
Can it reach that rock over there?
How far away is that rock, Bert?
7 squares.
Is 7 a larger number than 5?
Yes.
Then no, it cannot reach the rock.
Okay. Can it reach that well? Right, badger number 12. Elsie, she's called. Can she reach that stream?
What's her speed score, Bert?
It's where's that again?
Top of the sheet.
5.
And how far away is the stream?
1, 2, 3, 4 squares.
So,
Can she reach the stream?
yes, Bert, she can reach the stream. Okay, is that all your badgers done? Badgers Kevin, Charles, Beavis, Khaleesi, Evangeline, Batman Jr., Tom, Dick, Harry, Desdemona, and Elsie.
Yeah, they've all moved. Now, they each get an attack. And then I'm dual wielding, so I get 2 attacks, plus a bonus action, and each badger adjacent to another badger gets another attack. Now, how do I do an attack? Wait, where is everybody?
Oh, Bert, they all left about 90 minutes ago. I think they've completed another entire campaign during your turn.
Rude. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. We just wanted to mention our Patreon. Peter, are you familiar with our Patreon?
Oh, is it patreon.com/Morrus?
Yes.
MORRUS?
At patreon.com/Morrus, you can find our Patreon, which is what pays for our podcast and buys us all these wonderful microphones and mixers and other little bits and pieces.
And wires. So many wires.
And all these wires. We have a load of wonderful Patreon backers at the moment. And those backers get...
We cherish you all.
Yes, we do cherish them very much. And those backers get bonus content every single week, just as a thank you for backing our Patreon.
And because they're so awesome and so quick off the mark, they also get to talk to us in our Discord channel, which is pretty good. And we'll sometimes even deign to answer that. But even more importantly, when we have guests coming onto the show, they have the opportunity to ask questions of those guests. And then we will pass on the questions that we think our guests will answer.
So please, if you do enjoy the podcast, head on over to patreon.com/Morrus. Link will be in the show notes. Yes. And support us, even with just $1 a month. Every little bit helps. Should we start talking about Ashley now?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about it. It's one of my favourite subjects.
Marvelous.
All right, let's talk about Ashley and 13th Age and things of that, things of that nature.
And all the stuff I'm doing and have done, and yeah.
And are yet to do.
I mentioned Deep Magic. So I'm producing something similar to that. Every month through my Patreon, one of the things I do is I put out a dozen new spells. And each month it's based off a different letter of the alphabet and a different theme. So the first month was A, which was A is for acid. So it was like 12 acid spells, and at least 2 of them utility spells, which is sometimes hard coming up with, okay, this is a utility spell and it's got to begin with the letter Y, and also it's got to have to do with plants. But yeah, there's
that really sounds more like your problem. No, but yeah.
So just so the listeners know, where can they find your Patreon?
Okay, so I'm on Patreon. On Patreon, I'm Ash Law, because I'm the front cover of all my books. I'm professionally Ash Law, which is usually in all caps, which is a great shibboleth, because I know that if a publisher doesn't put my name in all caps as Ash Law, then it's like the brown M&Ms. Brown M&Ms and a brandy glass thing. I'm like, I should go over the final draft of this and make sure that they haven't capitalized things weirdly, or like changed terms.
Like
or,
the Aerosmith contract rider. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
No, that's a good shout. Yes, we should probably explain for those people who don't know what 13th Age is, despite it being dear to my heart. We may have listeners who are like, 13th Age, what is
13th
this?
Age, what is that? Okay, so one of the big... I think the lead designer on 3rd edition was Jonathan Tweet, and the lead designer for 4th edition was Rob Heinzu. And Rob Heinzu is very rules focused. Yeah,
that's 3rd edition and 4th edition D&D, by the way, just to clarify.
Yes, sorry, yeah. And Jonathan Tweet is very kind of story gamey, and he did a lot of very proto story game things before the story game movement really took off. Things like Over the Edge and Everway and other really interesting games. And so when
do you mean Over the Wall, not Over the Edge?
No, Over the Edge.
Over the Edge.
Over the Edge. Okay, I'm thinking of a different game then. Sorry, my bad. Please continue.
So they're real life friends. They game together. They both live up in Seattle. Well, Wizards of the Coast, so they both live Seattle area, as do I. But I live a little bit further down. I live in Olympia, so I'm an Olympian.
Nice.
So they got together, and they've both been playing D&D-ish at their home table with lots of rules that were not in either edition of D&D, and lots of things that they dropped from D&D, and this is kind of the synthesis of their two D&D styles. So it's the best bit of 3rd edition and the best bits of 4th edition, and is also the best bits of 5th edition, because a lot of stuff that appears in 5th edition appeared beforehand in 13th Age. Things like advantage, disadvantage is actually a mechanic for the barbarians in 13th Age. There's a lot of stuff which is like... So when you were describing the 5th edition essentials, I was like, oh yeah, this is all familiar to me. So if you're playing 13th Age, you're probably getting the things which are going to be appearing in Dungeons & Dragons in like 3-4 years' time. So I'm still waiting for the montage mechanic to appear in 5th edition. I don't know, maybe it already has, but...
It certainly made an appearance in my 5th edition games.
It's such a... So for those at home who are not aware, montages are a great way to skip past bits which might drag.
Like a travel scene or training downtime.
Yeah. So you would start at one person, and you would go, hey, tell me a problem the party encounters whilst travelling through the trackless desert. And somebody would go, well, a sandworm attacks us. And rather than running that as a combat, the next person says, oh, well, my character is a druid, and I tame the sandworm. And everybody gets to, like... And it's a real quick thing that narratively covers a lot of ground, so then you can get to the actual adventure. It's also great to start a session with, so everybody can kind of warm up, reintroduce everybody to their characters, what their characters are good at. It also, for me, as a GM, gives me great ammunition, because if somebody keeps talking about sandworms, then I know that that's something that the party's interested in, that they enjoyed having in the montage. People kept going back to, oh, it's more sandworms, so I know that maybe I should throw some sandworms into today's session. If not as like a major thing, at least mention it, kind of, because 13th Age does hand a lot of creative levers. I'm on a British podcast, so I have to switch between levers and levers. Levers and levers.
I prefer to just go with levers. Just makes it easier.
It hands over a lot of the creative dials and creative buttons.
Or dials, as we like to call them.
That's just true again.
So yeah, I'm doing a book of classes through Pelgrane, and that's in the very early stages. We're still discussing it stages, but Rob is really keen to do that. We're doing I'm doing every month through my Patreon. I put out something called Unexplored Arcana, which is new rules for 13th Age, new rule systems for 13th Age. Sometimes it's like here's like ways to handle the races from the core book, but in a completely different way. and I've done that a couple of times. The thing this month is an entirely new magic system. Something called Urge, where you get to mess with the dice themselves. You get to alter fate, and any class can get the power of Urge. But the more you use it, the more you have the urge to use it. It's like an addictive thing. It's rules for something else I put out through Unexplored Arcana. Rules for living magic items. So they're magic items, but they bond to you. They become part of you. I think next month I'm going to do a load of Fey items, which come with very downsides.
And some geshes. Oh, that's a good gesh. Or that's a gias to you, Russ.
A gias.
Why would it be a gias to me?
Honestly, pronounced gash.
I told you that.
Is that how it's pronounced? I've been pronouncing it.
I knew that because they're super important.
Weird mirror universe thing that's going on. I told you that.
You did not tell me that.
I'm going to go back and listen to the pronunciation podcast. And you will hear me telling you
I used to think it was pronounced that way.
It is
but
pronounced
then I
that way.
went RPG and learnt it was differently.
I've been pronouncing stuff geese instead. Not geese. I've been pronouncing it geese.
Yeah, no, it's gesh. Gesh.
Yeah, gesh.
Sorry. I mean, people will know what you mean. They won't know what we mean. So who's to say that you're wrong?
Goose. What's this goose doing with the fairy?
Well, it's not really a word that comes up in everyday life, is it? You don't use it, down the supermarket.
Yeah, is it like the gesh that laid the golden egg?
if you're a gamer, then it does come up a lot because gamers know a lot of strange terms.
Yeah.
I mean, phylactery or phylactery or whatever, and. So I was at a US convention and I heard somebody say, "Oh, the portcullis drops down in front of you."
I know. I had a friend who used to call it a portoculus.
Portoculus, I love it.
Oh, please stop butchering portcullis. It does not deserve this hate.
Portcullis.
Why?
Yeah. So I put out this thing called Grimoire, Unexplored Arcana. I put out every month a thing called A Touch of Class, which I might have to now rename.
That's an excellent name for anything to do with classes.
Yes,
so it's
many brilliant products are called A Touch of Class.
Also, I found that if you Google A Touch of Class, you actually end up with a high-end Australian escort site. Which is
perfect to some people.
Well, yes, but it doesn't really help you sell the product, does it?
So A Touch of Class, but what I put out is a new talent for each 13th age class each month. So this month
talents are very important because
talents are how you build your character in 13th age. And that's
three talents per class, as I recall. So
well, most classes, some classes get more, some classes get less. So it's, I think the Barbarian ends up with 5 talents by the end of its career.
Yep.
Whereas the Wizard starts with 3 talents and always has 3 talents.
I suppose Druid has 2.
Does Druid have 2?
They've got the major and minor in it.
No, they have 3, so you could have 3 minor things, or a major thing and a minor thing, which is actually clever design. I really like that. The way that you can kind of spread your Druid around, or like really, really focus your Druid. I never
thought I'd hear someone use the phrase "spread your Druid around."
It's our new product. I can't believe it's not Druid. It's not Druid. It spreads like margarine, but it's 100% Druid. Never before has it been so easy to spread your Druid around.
Well, I guess it's probably vegetarian as well.
You'd hope.
I would imagine Druids are vegetarians.
We should point out that eating vegetarians, right?
Eating vegetarians is not being a vegetarian. No.
Throwing it out there.
Eating vegetarians, though, would save plants. So maybe Druids would just become pure carnivores and just eat things
they just turn into pure cannibals, I think, wouldn't they?
Yeah. So my current character in a game that I'm playing is a cannibal fairy illusionist, which is I love 13th Age because cannibal fairy illusionist. By the way, fairy is a race released by my Patreon, and illusionist is a class released by my Patreon. For those listening at home who really fancy playing Fairy Illusionists.
Yes. But Cannibal's just what you're bringing to the table.
Cannibal's what it's one of the backgrounds.
I'm pretty sure we do have a Fairy Illusionist demographic. Somewhere. There's some Venn diagram, and definitely Fairy Cannibal Illusionists are definitely somewhere in our listener base.
You would be surprised at the demographics for games who are just like crying out for. I mean, Ponyfinder.
If you want to throw half dragon, half fairy in there, then that's just exponential increase.
Hey, we have a Patreon question for Ashley, which I thought was exciting.
Yes.
We got a question from one of our patrons. We allow our patrons who are on Patreon to ask our guests questions. And we got one from Ian Donaldson.
Yes. Okay, hello, Ian.
Thanks, Ian.
And Ian would like to know, I have never played the 13th Age setting, so I would be interested to know what attracted you to it and what keeps you creating content.
Okay, that's a really good question. So, Ian, what attracted me to it? Well, on one hand, it's the rules. On the other hand, it's the setting. So I'm going to address setting first. So the 13th Age setting is broad strokes. It's a broad stroke setting, which allows you as the GM and the players to define the game as you want. So we know that there's an empire. We know that it's run by a dragon emperor. We know certain things about the Dragon Emperor, but we don't know, is the Dragon Emperor a good person, a bad person? What's the Dragon's Emperor's, actual name? What is the Dragon Emperor actually like? What is the capital city actually like? And there's some details for various things. I mean, there's a place called Shadowport. We know that Shadowport is the home ground of the Prince of Shadows. We know that by extension, this is probably a place of pirates and smugglers and thieves and rogues. But beyond that, it's up to the players. It's up to the GM to take these very broad strokes things, which gives you hooks into the setting, and to cooperatively define them to have the game experience that you want. If you want to say Shadowport actually is there's never any daylight there, which is why it's called Shadowport, and hence there's a load of vampires who live there. You can totally do that if you're a player who's interested, or a GM who's interested in that. And one of the mechanics in 13th Age is backgrounds, where you
as opposed to having a list of skills and proficiencies and all that jazz. Because you're not a scrib adventurer. I think that's a really important thing to get across. In 13th Age, you don't start off as a mook. You start off as someone who, they've been around, they've done some things, they've had an interesting life.
They've got a past, they've got a reason, but they're an adventurer. They've got things that they've done. So instead of having a set list of skills, you can say, I am the only person to have escaped the dungeon of the vampire nobles of Shadowport.
Nice.
And so instantly that tells everybody else, well, Shadowport has vampire nobles, because they've been defined in your background.
Yeah.
And then you also know, well, escaping from their dungeon is really hard. It's a hard thing. You're the only person who's done it. And so this gives the GM something to work with, to go, okay, so in your background you escaped from the vampire nobles. So they're probably looking for you now. They're probably got things. As a player, this allows me to then apply that background to skill checks.
Yeah.
If I want to go, if I want to escape from somewhere, I go, well, see, I got +3 in escaping from this place, the vampire dungeon of Shadowport. I escaped there, so I'm going to add +3 to the roll. If I need to navigate at night, I would go, well, I escaped from this thing. It was nighttime. You then bring your backstory into the game.
I found my way through the Dread Labyrinth with my eyes shut, because if you look, it would completely distract you. Yeah, and then you can have almost like a little mini storytelling background thing that emerges naturally.
Exactly.
Into the game.
Exactly.
I think that was one of the things I liked best about 13th Age was that. I think it's very, very, very clever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, to take an example from Star Wars, I mean, Luke has a +4 background in bullseyeing Wump Rats. It is T80 or whatever it was. So, and he was like, then I'm going to apply that to my role to try and destroy the Death Star. because that's something in his background. I come from a desert planet, they're all pomp rats, whatever the heck they are. I used to bullseye them, and they just happen to be the same size as an exhaust ball.
Who could have said? Yeah. And he was like, and the player was sitting around the table saying, "Ha, I told you guys that would be relevant. Told you. Told you." See, it's come in. Because the GM has created the scenario such that you...
so exactly, it gives you, as the GM, like, something to build towards. So it's not that, somebody puts a load of points into sneaking, and then, like, the next 10 sessions are not going to be sneaky at all. You can then build sessions around the backgrounds of the players, and make the backgrounds of the players inform what's going to happen. So if Han Solo has like a +3 background in I owe money to Jabba the Hutt for a smuggling job, then that allows you as the GM to go, I need to have an NPC called Jabba the Hutt, and I need to have him show up, and I need to have this be a problem for this player and this owing of money and bounty hunters, and it allows you to, as the GM, make the story fit the characters rather than trying to shoehorn characters into the story.
And it also gives the players a certain element of narrative control over the setting as well.
Exactly. And another way that players can narratively control the setting is the one unique thing. Yeah. Every character has one unique thing. So you can say something like, I am the only good Dark Elf. And
which
that
tells
then
you a lot of stuff about your world.
That sounds like an original concept. I like that.
I'm the only good Dark Elf.
How many swords do you wield?
I was thinking of two swords. I figured I might have some sort of panther companion. I'm thinking ranger.
Ranger's always a good choice. Absolutely.
But it allows you to then inform the setting by saying, I am the only, or I'm the only one that I know of. So in the game that I run right now, there's somebody who's an amnesiac demigod, or who was ascending to demigodhood, and then had her mind taken away by the gods, who were afraid that she was going to ascend to demigodhood, or godhood, and then
hasn't that happened
take over one of their portfolios.
Ascending to godhood, then you just forget about it. Yeah.
So that tells me, as a GM, that this is that ascending to godhood is something in the setting that is possible. Next campaign that we run, that might not be a thing which is possible, or might be a thing that's possible but people don't know about it, but because a player has said, I was ascending to godhood and then I became an amnesiac because of this thing, that's a powerful tool for the GM, that's a powerful tool for the players. And a lot of these ideas from 13th Page, there's a little sidebar in 13th Page, which in the core book, which says, totally steal these ideas for your games. So if you're a 5th edition GM, totally steal these ideas for your games.
Absolutely.
Or start playing 13th Age. Yeah, there's a ton of really cool little mechanical things baked into the setting. Baked into the rule system. Things like the escalation die.
Yes, that's a fun idea too.
Die.
And the escalation die, for those who've never played 13th Age, fights start tough. Monsters are pitched a little bit higher than you can actually deal with. And you have this thing called an escalation die, and it's a d6, and it starts at 0, and it's whatever is the biggest and most important looking d6 that you have in your armory of dice. And then at the end of the first round of combat, you put the d6 on the table, and it's showing 1. And you then have...
I always find it important to shout escalation at this point as a GM. So that people know that the escalation die is going up. And from then on, you have +1 to your attacks. Yes.
And certain classes might have +1 to certain other things, depending upon which the classes. But you then have +1 to your attacks. So now you're kind of on an even footing with the monsters. Maybe not yet. Next round, it goes up to +2, +3, +4. So it gives this really nice narrative flow to the combat. Combats then don't last forever and a day.
Or take no time at all.
And also kind of stops... Also, does it kind of stop people novering at the beginning of a combat because they're holding off some of their sort of one-shot stuff for later,
Some of their big things, they're like, maybe I'll save this for when the escalation die is
So you get a climactic end rather than like that trickle that happened in 4th edition where you'd have a big novering start and then it would just trickle down to chip away at hit points.
Oh, yeah.
Precisely, yeah.
in the games we played, it tended to be we'd be fighting for 4 rounds till we hit round 3. Then the cleric would drop judgment and do piles of damage, and then the next round would be like, escalation dice 3, circle of death, and then the fight would be over because everyone was dead.
Yeah, it does give this really nice narrative flow to combats, where combat is not over instantly, where combat doesn't take forever and a day.
Yeah.
And it gives a nice kind of it's a great feeling as a player to suddenly, I'm not able to hit this thing, it's too tough, and then you're like, oh, my character's worked out its weaknesses, I've been fighting this for a little bit, I'm now aware that it's got a weak underbelly, I should start stabbing there. The escalation dies at +3. I'm going to say, wow, it's a +3. I'm now shooting my arrows at its underbelly. It's a fantastic thing that you can totally import to other games just by giving each monster +1 or +2 AC, and then introducing the escalation die. And that will work for any game which has to hit rolls and...
Oh yeah, it's a really combat, transportable mechanic, that, isn't it?
Yeah. And the thing I also like about it is we mentioned there's no rolling of the dice unless it's significant. Even if you miss, you do the miss damage. I really love that. Because
damage on a miss is controversial. There was this period on EN World where there were so many people arguing about it, so many threads, that I actually had to create a separate damage on a miss forum. Just to shove all those threads in there, just so I didn't have to look at the bloody things. And there were dozens of them. Just people arguing about damage on a miss. And this was, I think, during the early days of the D&D Next playtest, where there's some damage on a miss mechanics in there. And there were some people who loved them, and there were some people that hate them, because it was a carryover from 4th edition. And, oh my God, it drove me nuts, that argument. I had just... I'm so glad.
And damage on a miss in 13th Age doesn't always apply, because rangers can do damage on a miss with range stuff. They can, because, I missed you, but, I still winged you. Whereas a fighter can't do damage on a miss with a ranged attack. But a fighter who comes and he tries to, hit you with his sword, well, he's missed with his sword, but he's going to follow through with his elbow, and then he's going to follow up with his knee. So, you're not doing, I hit you with a sword damage, but you're still doing, I'm a fighter who's right up in your face, and I'm going to bring my elbow into play down.
And wizards traditionally, it was either hit or miss completely, so that encouraged you to hold off on using your bigger spells until you were sure to hit. So, And some wizard spells in 13th Age do have miss damage, because even if you miss somebody with a fireball, you're still putting a giant ball of fire there. There's some collateral. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. It depends upon the thing, but damage on a miss means that a roll is never wasted. I
suppose if you think about it, damage on a miss does actually have a legacy in D&D anyway, though, because all those spells where you took damage or saved for half... That's pretty much damage on a miss reversed, isn't it? You're making a save rather than an attack, but it is basically damage on a miss.
Exactly. That is precisely what it is.
But the thing is, you don't have saving throws, of course, in 13th Age.
Yeah, I know.
Because you have those 3 defences. What's it? AC, physical defence, and mental defence. I quite like that sophistication, I'll be honest.
And, I mean, there are still saving throws in 13th Age, but they're not, I attack you, and then you have to roll a saving throw to avoid the attack, or whatever. It's, I need to disengage from you. Well, that's a saving throw to see whether I can disengage from you without you stabbing me up as I disengage. Or I can make the choice now that I failed my disengage check saving throw to not disengage because I see that you're ready for that. So no, it's a really nice system. It's got enough crunch to please people who like really crunchy systems. It's got enough story game elements to please people who really like story games. It
can be incredibly improv heavy.
It can be very improv heavy if you're the kind of
Sorry, can I just ask, with the icon dice, do you roll them at the start of every session? Because I found that really hard to get everything in.
Icon dice?
Okay. So icon dice. Let's talk about icon dice.
Introduce things without explaining them, Peter.
I think you'll find I can.
So in most settings with faction, you would go, well, I'm a member of the Harpers. I work for Elminster. Well, I actually worship I actually worship the, Spider Queen of the Demon Web. This kind of reifies that. So you can go, well, I'm a servant of the Emperor, so I have a +3 relationship with the Emperor. So I have these 3d6, and I can roll them, and any that come up 6, I can use these 6s for something very cool. And anything that comes up 5, I can use it for something, but there'll be like some sort of downside or some sort of cost to that. And like anything that's 1 to 4, I just ignore. So I could have an icon die 6, and I could that's come up 6, and I could go up to the city gates, and they're like, oh no, we're not letting anybody in after dark. And I'll be like, I got this 6 with the Emperor. Can I actually trade this in for a special get into city after dark letter that I've just been carrying around this whole time? And the GM's like, yeah, sure, that seems reasonable given what we know about the setting and given what you've done previously. Yeah, sure, you've got a special writ from the Emperor which allows you past gate guard.
So is this a per session thing or a?
This is a per session thing. So like it might be like, okay, it's got a time limit on it, this letter you got from the Emperor, or like it's a one-use thing, you have to hand it to the gate guard. Or you can also have negative relationships. So you've got like, I've got a -2 with the Lich King. Well, I've rolled a 5 and a 6. So can I like trade these in because I failed my skill check, but I still want to trade these in for knowing about vampires because I hate the Lich King. So I would be aware of his minions. I want to know about vampires. So yeah, it allows you to call upon your relationships with powerful figures within the setting without making it all about these figures, by making it about the player characters. Failing forwards. We should talk about failing forwards, which is a really cool mechanic.
That is a Pilgrim Quest classic.
It's so instead of being, I tried to climb this wall, well, roll a climb check. Oh, I fail. Okay, well, you haven't climbed the wall. I guess you have to take a different route through the adventure then. You've come to you needed to research this thing, but you failed to research it, so I guess the adventure's over because you don't know where to go next. Whereas this is
not so much gating off content. It's like giving you success with a complication.
Yeah, exactly. You can go, well, I fail forwards climbing this wall. Okay, you successfully climb it, but you fall off the other side and take some damage. Or, yeah, you successfully climb it, but there's a loose stone and it kicks down onto the halfling's toe. Doesn't do any damage, but makes the halfling shout out, which alerts for you all. It allows you to go, I still want to succeed at this thing, and I'm willing to pay a cost for that, which will make our lives more complicated. And of course, a roll of a 1 is always a roll of a 1. It's always going to make you fail, but you always have the option, if it's not a 1, to fail forwards and to move the story forwards in a way that you want, but that might have unforeseen complications, unforeseen problems down the line or immediately. So it's a really neat thing, which, because you are heroes, if you're going to climb a wall, you should be able to climb a wall. Exactly. If you're willing to have this, be a problem. So yeah, Han Solo fails forwards on convincing Darth Vader not to kill him. But instead his fail forwards is, okay, you're not killed, but you're frozen in carbonite and shipped off the Jabba the Hutt, who appears in your background. Yeah,
exactly. It's a very versatile, strong storytelling system. A lot of built-in improv to minimise the prep. It's got at least 2 solid bestiaries, because you've got the bestiary. I think there's bestiary 2, the Midgard bestiary. Which did you write that one?
I wrote for Midgard bestiary for 13th Age. I wrote half of the first bestiary. I wrote 2/3 of the second bestiary. If you're a patron of mine, I try to put out a growing setting every month, which has a bestiary at the back.
So if you had to choose just like one thing from 13th Age, which you'd say is your favourite thing or was the best thing, or what would that one thing be? I know it's a hard choice.
That's a real hard choice. That's my favourite thing right now as a player are fighter flexible attacks, which are really nice. So that's I'm a fighter. I'm attacking you. I roll a d20, and I see if I hit on this. Okay, so that's my attack. But I've also got all these flexible attacks that I know. So if my attack roll is an 18 plus, I can trigger some sort of trip thing because my attack has put you into a position to trip you. But I've also chosen to get this other thing, which allows me to, I don't know, throw sand in your eyes or to...
pocket sand. Strong choice.
Yeah, pocket sand. Or to, I can like follow up with like a bull rush. So it takes all those little feats and abilities that you would normally be different attacks, and it would just be like, I'm hitting you real hard with my sword, and then I'm going to see what you've opened yourself up to, and based upon what I, as a character, know how to do, what I'm an expert at, I'm then going to exploit that situation. So that's a really, really nice system. As a GM, I really like the ability to create monsters. In the core book, there's a whole chart of, okay, so it's a 3rd level huge monster. This is the damage it should be doing. This is the hit points it should have. You're then able to take those things and then say there isn't a beholder in any of the books you have. You can then go, well, I want to create a beholder. Let me look at the 2 pages of advice on creating monsters. Let me look at what its stat block should roughly be. Let me go from there. And in 2 minutes, while the players are discussing how they're going to fight the beholder you've just put in front of them, you can quickly create a beholder. And as a creator, the thing that I really like is how grokkable the system is. How if you've ever played a game that has levels and monsters and dragons and dungeons, then
you're good to go.
Then you're good to go. You already know
I think what you would call such a game. Levels of monsters and dragons and dungeons. Level monster? Level monster.
Maybe Trolls and Trolls.
Dungeon leveler.
Yeah, Dungeon leveler. I like it. Yeah.
Dungeon leveler.
It's all about, for myself, I got to say utility spells are like a single blinding act of genius.
They're genius. They're genius. They really are.
Which is essentially, you could like, there's a whole bunch of spells that has a wizard you'd want to have prepared, but as a player, you're like, well, am I actually going to get any use out of these? And 13th Age says, yeah, sure. You have these prepared in potential. Just prepare a utility spell, and then when you need it, you have that spell prepared because you prepared that utility slot. So did you need Disguise Self? Bam. Did you need Featherfall? Bam. But it's sort of Schrodinger's spell preparation. You don't know exactly what it is until you look at it.
Yeah, so it's not like you're memorizing Featherfall and then you actually need Disguise Self. And you're like kicking yourself because like, I should it's just like, I am a wizard. I should be able to cast these things. I've memorized utility spell, and it is Schrodinger's spell. It's and then you say the utility spell I memorized this morning was Featherfall, and now in falling I cast Featherfall, and that's my utility spell that I memorized for today.
Just that. I think for me it would be definitely because I nearly stole them for What's Old Is New. The backgrounds. I still love that about 13th Age. So I remember the very first time that I played 13th Age, and it was at UK Games Expo. I want to say like 5 years ago. It was literally when the game was first coming out. It might have been literally just before because Spellbane were doing some demos. And I played one of those, and the backgrounds were the things that jumped out at me at the time then, and kind of stuck with me ever since. And I nearly stole them, but I didn't. But I came close to using them.
Nice.
I love the tight knit community around 13th Age, but there are a load of people who are doing really creative stuff for 13th Age, and so it's like the OSR used to be, but without some of the things that
went wrong with that.
went badly wrong with that. So you've got people creating all sorts of crazy stuff, adapting stuff to 13th Age, creating their own weird and wonderful settings. There's somebody who's actually doing a Kickstarter right now called King of the Dungeon, which is a kind of torchbearer cut down version of 13th Age, which is looking really interesting. And of course 13th Age is all OGL, So you can take whatever you can build for it. Pale Grain Press has some open license stuff, so you can put a logo on the front of your book to say, yeah, it's totally compatible with 13 Pages Archimage engine. So yeah, I mean, I've heard people who are wanting to do 13th Age in space, people who want to do 13th Age cyberpunk.
But Ashley, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We've really enjoyed having you.
Thank you for having me on.
I can only speak for myself, but you're definitely welcome back.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes, I would love to.
So next week we will be delving into Acquisitions Incorporated in great detail. We might even weigh the book, as is our custom.
Hooray! Oh, and we have to weigh also Desktops and Dragons as well, because you've waved a 750-page book in front of me, and our listeners need to know.
Okay, we will do that. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening. We'll see you next week, and that will be goodbye from me, Russ.
That'll be goodbye from me, Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Roleplayers.
And it's goodbye from me, Ashley.
Thank you very much.
Apparently I now have to read this to you. This is the official podcast of Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG news, which you can find at enworld.org. You can find show notes at morris.podbean.com or wherever you found the podcast. If you feel like they deserve it, you can support the show on Patreon. In return, you will receive exclusive bonus content. Just go to patreon.com/Morris. If you're interested in his babbling nonsense, you can follow @Morris on the Twitter. Send your emails to morrispodcast@gmail.com. Not all of your emails, just the ones you want us to see. That's it. I'm bored now. You can go away. Shoo, off you go. Goodbye. Get out of here.